Hello everyone, I'm back and I'm going to show you some of the things I've been using lately to get what I've got. So if you look, this is the front end of the car and it is painted. It's not final paint, but it is pretty good. And what I did was I used Rattlecan. I have been using Rust-Oleum, and I painted it previously with Rust-Oleum, but the color was off from what the customer wanted. I'm gonna see, okay, here we go. Here's the other color. It's kind of a mint color if you look inside of there. And he wanted what I would call baby blue color. So I went back to, I've been buying my paint at Walmart. So I went back to Walmart to see if they had a color that better matched. They really didn't in Rust-Oleum. So I went because Rust-Oleum's come out with a 5-in-1 sprayer where a single spray can has this rotating dial where you can change the fan pattern. One of the hard things about spraying from a spray can or rattle can is the pattern comes out in a circle and it's really hard to lay down paint smoothly. It would be great if it would come out in a fan. Some of them do, most of them don't. The reason why is because paint works best if you overlap each pass a little bit, and ideally I want the final coat to be such that it's just short of running or sagging. And what that does is it allows the paint to run together so it makes a smooth layer. But that's hard to do with the round spray pattern. So anyway, I was going to do that, and then Walmart doesn't have that new sprayers yet. I think Home Depot or Lowe's, I can't remember which, has it. And that was on my plan, but anyway. So what happened was I found this other stuff, Color Shot, and it happened to be the right color. And it's only $5 a can. It's smaller than the others. It's only 10 ounces, but that's 50 cents, basically less than 50 cents an ounce. So it's actually the same, or cheaper than Rust-Oleum. So anyway, I thought I'd give it a try. And I can't tell you how pleased I am with the results. It came out really nice. It's not perfect, but for a Rattlecan job, it's pretty good. So let me show you the best way to judge a paint job is ideally you would like it to be a mirror. You're not gonna get a mirror with a Rattlecan, but if you look at this, you can at least see there is a reflection. And what I do is I see, can I read the letters on something? And you can see that, yep, sure enough, you can read the letters. And the other thing is you can tell as you go along, where you can't read the letters is obviously where it's not quite smooth enough. But honestly, for a Rattlecan paint job, especially if this was just a daily driver, which is what this is supposed to be, this came out really good. This one not only is just supposed to be a daily driver, but on top of that, he wants to wrap it. So all it needs is something good enough that you can put wrap over, and this far exceeds that. You can see though in some spots, if you look right there, if you get it at just the right angle, it's a little bit rough, like right through here. I got a little bit of a sag right here. So like I said, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and color sand this. What that is using some really fine sandpaper and sanding down these spots so that it is actually smooth and glossier. And then I'm going to cover it with clear. So all of that's coming up in the future. I'll show you that. The biggest disadvantage I found about the Rattlecan paint is on a car, it's not durable. It'll last a couple of years. I've done this in the past. It lasts a couple of years, and then it's just not made to withstand all that. It will peel or turn colors or, you know, different things. What I'm going to try on this one is putting a high quality clear on top of it. After it cures and I get through doing the color sanding, I'm going to try putting a high quality clear on top of it and see if it works. I have tried the clear from Rust-Oleum and other Rattlecans, and It does work, but it also has the issue that it only lasts a couple of years, about a year or two, and then it starts, in the case that I've seen, that I've kept the car, it ends up peeling. So I just redo it. Paint and clear is relatively easy, but I'm trying to find something that'll last a little bit longer than a couple of years. Doesn't matter for my stuff. You know, I can paint it every couple of years, but if you're doing it for somebody else, obviously they wouldn't be happy at 2 years they had to redo it or have it redone. Anyway, just set expectations appropriately. So with that said, a couple of other things. All right, when I'm making my molds, I've used PVA. It creates a physical barrier in between the mold and the part. The problem I've had is I can't get it to spray as smooth as I'd like, so I end up brushing it. Comes out pretty good, but it's not what I would like. I would ideally like for the surface to be, you know, as glossy, as smooth as this. If I could get it as smooth as this straight out of the mold, I'd be happy with that. So I got this. The problem is the spray things I've tried, they don't put out a fine enough mist. So I bought this Mr. Sprayer thing here, and it says it would do anything from a fine mist to a spray. You pump it up, put whatever you want in it, and spray it. The problem I ran into with water, it does. It puts out a really fine mist, which is what you want. Unfortunately, the difference between viscosity of water and PVA, it won't do it. It puts out, kind of sputters it out. It does put it out, but it doesn't put a fine mist. It puts out droplets, and that defeats the whole purpose. It's not cheap. I think I paid 35 bucks for it, and I was going to return it. But a good use I found for it is when I am doing this color sanding. You want a wet sand, and the paper tends to stick. Sandpaper tends to stick because it's such a fine grit and such a fine surface. So you need to keep it lubricated constantly. So I put a mixture of Dawn dishwashing soap and water, put it in this sprayer, pumped it up, and in one hand I was holding the sprayer spraying, and then the other hand I was sanding. Obviously that works if I can do sanding with one hand. If I have to use two hands, it's a little more difficult, but it beats the heck out of having a hose there, you know, trying to maneuver a garden hose with a sprayer on the end, or in the other case I use a bucket full of soapy water and a towel or something. Anyway, it's kind of pricey at 35 bucks to do it, but it does work. Other things, all right, since that didn't work, I bought a HVLP paint sprayer. This is an off-brand, but it got good reviews on Amazon. I've always wondered about these. I have a friend that they make guitars, and then they spray them, and they got a really nice paint sprayer. I asked about it. Unfortunately, they live in Australia. It was only 35 bucks. They live in Australia. I looked, and the company they got it from doesn't ship to the US. So I went online and looked, and the reviews for everything was all over the map. Anything that got decent reviews was over $100, and I didn't want to spend over $100, so I found this one. I think it was about $35. I'll have to look it up. I want to try to spray, I got some polyester primer. I want to try to spray it, but I'm afraid of how hard it's going to be to clean that out of a gun before it cures. If nothing else, if this allows me to spray PVA smoothly, then it's going to be worth the 35 bucks or whatever I paid for it. So I'll do a test coming up next time I need to spray PVA, and I'll let you know how it works. A couple other things was I had asked on my Facebook page and several Facebook groups, what's the easiest way to get all of these nooks and crannies sanded? Most of this I did with just a detail sander, they call it mouse sander. Did great on this for what I'm doing, but it wouldn't get down in these areas. And so, you know, about 3/4 of the comments were smartasses saying, "Oh, use your hand." Well, thanks, I appreciate that. Really, that's really useful. Anyway, so out of that, I did get some good suggestions. Of course, blasting it. with either sandblast, soda, or something like that would work, but I don't have a compressor that can keep up and do that. I don't have a blaster. So while that's a great suggestion, it requires you to go out and buy, I don't know, a $500 compressor or something like that, and a sandblaster or a soda blaster. Those aren't very expensive. I think you can get them for less than $100, probably half that. But again, without a compressor that can run it, that isn't doing good. Which brings up the other thing. I did actually buy a $17 Harbor Freight spray gun. I've been hearing about them for years, and I never have bought one. Again, because of my compressor challenge. But I got a small compressor and tried it out, and the small compressor just could not keep up at all. When it was fully charged up and I sprayed, it did okay, but I mean a couple of sprays and it's quit atomizing the PVA well enough. So that ended up being a sorry train's coming. Anyway, so back to what I was talking about for those areas. What I ended up getting was a set of these. People said, oh, we'll just get a stick and cut a slot in it and put some sandpaper in it and make a flapper wheel. Well, forget that. I bought a whole set off of Amazon. I'll put links in here to all these things. A little stiffer than what I want, a little more aggressive, but I said, hey, I can find a use for that somewhere. The thing that I think is really going to work is these, what do you want to, like Scotch-Brite. I know that's a brand name, but whatever you want to call it, on a shaft. All of these are 1/4-inch shafts so that I can use my drill, cordless drills. Could use a Dremel. I've got that, but I didn't want it. So this is what I think I'm going to use to clean up those areas. It's a wide assortment of all of these. It wasn't very expensive. Got another set that is like little strings made out of the same stuff, but it hasn't come back in yet, so I will try that. Why I'm doing that is that when I was doing the spraying this with the Rust-Oleum, it was hot. It was like over 100 degrees and it was windy, and so what would happen is the paint would actually dry before it got in there. When you're spraying with this, the hard part is getting it at that point where it's on there smooth but doesn't run. And it was doable on these flat areas, but these areas in here where I had to get in, it was hard to get it in there without it running, or in that case it atomizing, drying, and then going on as what we call a dry spray. So I don't know if you can see it. I don't think you can, but I can definitely feel it. So this has a really rough surface in here, whereas, you know, you can see how smooth that is. I wouldn't have to do anything if it was that smooth, but it's not. So now I've got the problem that I've got an area here that is rough, and I'd like it smoother, and I need to rough it up so that paint will stick to it. So that's where those Scotch-Brite on a stick, basically, I'm going to use that to come in here and smooth this out. So this thing is pretty much done from this side, other than this area right here. I ran out of paint, so this area right here needs to be smoothed out. I can do that with the mouse sander, all of these surfaces. Some of this I can do with the mouse sander, but I can't get inside of here with the mouse sander, so that's what I'm going to use the Scotch-Brite pieces for. This is the same way as far as this is really rough right through here. It needs to be resanded. But also this area is behind the grill, so a lot of it's going to be cut out for airflow. So it's not a big deal. I'll probably have to end up leaving a lip, I don't know, 1/2 inch, 3/4 an inch, something like that, all the way around here, so there's something to mount the grill to. I need to see how the grills mount on these cars. But anyway, so today I'm going to go in and I'm going to use my mouse sander as much as possible to smooth all of this out. And same thing here. And then I'll use the, oh, and that right there, some of it I did have to hand sand, but I knew that. I mean, the people that gave the smart ass comments, it's like, okay, I know I'm going to have to hand sand some of it, but I want to minimize the amount of work required. So anyway, that's where we are now. So today I'm going to sand all of these areas smooth and try to get it as close to finished as I can. This has been curing for a couple of days. It says it only takes 24 hours to cure. Kind of hard to believe, but my sandpaper isn't here yet. So when it comes to smoothest I have is 320 grit. And I'm afraid that might be a little too aggressive. What I want to do is, I don't want any sanding scratches. So I want it smooth enough, and of course I'm going to put clear on top of it. So you got to find that balance between what's not going to have sanding scratches that are going to show up, but what's not going to be so smooth that the next layer, in this case clear, or even if I was going to recoat it with the same color, you don't want it so smooth that the paint has trouble sticking to it, because obviously that's just as bad if the paint peels or if sanding scratches show up. So the suggestions were somewhere between 400 and 600 grit. So I ordered 400 grit, 600 grit, and 1000 grit. The 1000 grit is after I spray the clear to get the clear smooth. So again, future videos, I'll cover that. While I'm here, I forgot about this. So this is the same shape as the mouse sander, only it's manual. And this allowed me to get into some of these areas where the mouse sander couldn't, because the mouse sander is like, I don't know, 6 inches tall. And so when I try to get in some of these areas, it would hit. Like right here, I couldn't get in these corners, whereas this, I could get down in these corners and sand it smoother. So again, this is not a perfect paint job. It's not meant to be a perfect paint job. And in fact, I'm really not even getting paid to paint this thing. The goal was simply to get it to a good enough point that it could be wrapped. And it's already there as far as that goes. If I just sand off the really rough areas, some of these areas, like I said, they're like sandpaper. So if I smooth those out, then that is good enough to wrap. But I want to go, I'd like to get it to where it doesn't even need to be wrapped. But we'll see, that's an ultimate goal. Anyway, I just want to show people, obviously the painters, the real painters, are going to laugh at this and say, oh, you can't get a decent paint job from Rattlecans. I need to correct them. Yes, you can. You can get a decent and a pretty good paint job from a Rattlecan. You just can't get something like they do, where it's a professional paint job. I'm not a professional painter. I don't claim to be a professional painter, and I really don't want to be a professional painter yet. I might someday in the future, but I've got other things I'd rather do. I'd rather design and get prototypes going to a state that I could turn something like this over to a painter and say, hey, will you finish paint this for me? So that's my goal. So again, the Rattlecan gets there. One question or issue you're going to have is, if you take this to a professional painter, they're not going to like it. They're going to go, I don't want to rest my reputation on how well you did putting this down, prepping it, all of that, because if your paint has an issue, then my paint that's on top of it is going to have an issue, and I don't want to take that risk. So they would end up probably sanding all of this off. Now the good thing is I did all the body work, so that would actually be fine, sand it off. And the painters again complained, well, you're adding extra work. Well, but I took a lot of work off of you because I got it to the state that it is before I painted it. So anyway, I just need to find a painter that's willing to work with me and say, all right, your stuff looks pretty good. Here's what I'm going to do to make it reduce my risk. And then I'm going to tell them, look, if it lasts a couple of years, I'm happy with it. All right, I don't need one that's going to last 20 years. So I keep seeing these posts about people saying, oh, you can't get a decent paint job for less than $12,000 to $20,000. I don't want to spend $12,000 to $20,000 for a paint job. You know what I mean? Look at this. I used, what, 4 cans? This is just the bottom side, so I have to flip it over and do it on the top side. So let's double that. Let's say 8 cans of Rattlecan. Was it 40 bucks in paint? Hey, you know what? For the difference between my $40 paint and the $20,000 paint, I can live with my $40 paint job. All right. Again, it's going to cost a lot more. I just spent $250 on Rattlecan primer. I got Let's see, what did I get? I got, oh, primer sealer. I think it's Rust-Oleum's the brand I got, if I'm not mistaken. Might be something else, I don't remember. Might be Krylon, but I think it was Rust-Oleum. Anyway, they have a primer sealer, and the idea of primer sealer is it helps to isolate what's underneath from what you're spraying on top. So I actually used it, and I used the primer filler. The primer filler is what I used on all of those areas that ended up with the dry spray, because it comes out like that. I mean, it's very, very hard to get it smooth, and I guess it's because of the talc that they use to add the filler. It just doesn't spray evenly. But I got the primer sealer, and it was night and day difference between how it sprayed. It sprayed as smooth as the paint. The problem was with it was hard to get that balance between smooth and having a sag or run in it. But it did. It came out really good. And then I did sand it with the 320. That's what I did over here. And you can see that it came out pretty good. I mean, I don't think there's any sags or runs on this side. All there is the little rougher areas, you know, where the reflection's not so great. Where when I sprayed the blue on, luckily the day I sprayed the blue, it was hot, but it was virtually windless. So that helped a lot. All right. The other thing is when you're spraying it, like I said, you want to get it in between, just before it runs or sags. Lighting for that with a Rattlecan is critical for me. What I do is I get to where the light is at the right angle, and when I'm spraying, I look for the wet. So when I spray it on, it goes on wet and then it dries. So when I spray, I make sure it has a nice, even, wet coat, and it's really glossy. And so then I watch when I spray to get it as even as I can. Again, it's difficult because of the round spray pattern, but you can see that it came out pretty good. My best paint jobs from Rattlecans have been at dusk, or at one time, I did it in the parking lot at Makerspace, and I used the parking lot lights, street lights. Worked perfect. I could get it to where I could see it, I could get my head at just the right angle and see exactly what the paint was going to look like. That one happened to be black, and it came out really good. This one isn't quite as good as that one, but honestly, this one's not bad. A little color sanding, and this would be a really good paint job. So I'll do a video on that when I color sand it. All right, I've rambled on enough. I just wanted to show you what I've been working on, what I'm planning on doing, and hopefully today I will get finished with all of this. I have the paint on order from Walmart. I bought the local Walmart out. I only got 4 cans because that's all they had. So I ordered another 10 cans of that blue. Again, I'm planning on doing the whole car, so it's probably going to take another 10 cans after that. But I needed enough to get going, so I bought another 10 cans. So anyway, that's supposed to be in today. Ideally, it would come in before it gets blazingly hot. It's supposed to get up to 105 again today. Right now, it's, I don't know, it's like 85 or something like that. And with the sun, it's kind of warm. I do have my canopy, which I'm going to put over this as I work. And so anyway, so ideally, I'll get this sanded smooth. Ideally, the paint will come in before I have to quit for the day. I've got other things I've got to do. And if that's the case, then I will not only sand it smooth, but I will spray it so that all of this is done. I did leave some spots that need to be repaired. Again, I'm one of those, I don't mind going back in and repairing. I just need to get the 80% done as quickly as possible, and then I'll do the however much of the last 20% to get 100% done. I need to do later. So I do have spot putty. All of those are 2K, 2-part, so polyester. So I will go back in and fix some of these small defects, and then I'll spot paint them. But again, this is the bottom side. You'd have to get down on your hands and knees to see the defects that you see here. So I am not trying to get that $12,000, $20,000 paint job. I'm trying to get something that looks good enough. So the question is, if you look at this, you can see there's some spots there, little pits. Do I want to fix those? I don't know. Is it really worth it? Same thing here, this corner right here. If this was facing up, I would definitely fix that. But since it's going to be underneath, and literally you'd have to get on your hands and knees to see that, it's questionable whether it's worth doing it. Same thing here with this lip. You can see there's spots in that lip, but again, you'd have to get down on your hands and knees to see it. Is it worth fixing it? So this is the difference between a cheap paint job and one of those $20,000 paint jobs. I've seen those $20,000 and more paint jobs. Literally, you can crawl under the car and it looks as good as looking at it from the top. But, you know, unless you're going to car shows and trying to win those top awards, is it really worth all that effort? So anyway, I will send out the sags right there. Again, the same thing. Okay, you might not have to get down on your hands and knees, but you'd have to really be looking for these things, because this thing is, you know, what, 6 inches off the ground where that spot is. All right, that's what I've got. Oh, so speaking of which, same thing here. That's body filler that I put on there, or fiberglass, I can't remember which. So I'll go back in, touch that up and fix it. But there's a grill work that goes over this. So the question is, how good does this need to be if it's got grill work over it? There you can see a little bit of a sag right there. But again, the paint, other than the sag, if it wouldn't have sagged, that would have been done. All right. Oh, and here's that dry spray area. I can see it. Don't know if it'll show up on the camera, but I can see that area right there. That's a dry spray. And then if you get it over here in the light reflecting off of it, again, I can't see the camera real well because of the sun, but you can see that it's just a little bit rough right there. But I guarantee you a couple swipes with some of that either 400 or 600 grit, and that'll go away. All right, I've rambled on enough. So I'll keep updating everyone, but this is what I've got so far, and honestly, I'm unbelievably pleased with this. If this was mine, I would color sand it and call it done, send it. All right, so maybe I would fix the spots, I don't know. I'll see, but anyway, it is definitely good enough for a daily driver. A daily driver means a car you drive every day. One of those, it's gonna get rock chips, it's gonna get stuff on it, it's gonna all that. So, you know, those $20,000 paint jobs are for the trailer queens, garage queens that they only drive on days that are really nice with no rain and, you know, minimal risk of paint chips and all of that stuff. So that's not what I do. I drive the crap out of my cars. So, in fact, I plan on racing all my cars, and there's no way to not get chips and stuff like that when you do that. All right, so like, subscribe, hit the alert, hit the thanks if you want to donate, and if you don't like what I'm doing, you don't know jack. Bye.